The silence after Shedeur Sanders' first throw back at practice was louder than any stadium roar. You know that feeling when an entire field just stops mid-motion, when a moment becomes so undeniable that even the doubters can't pretend anymore. That's exactly what happened in Berea when Sanders stepped up, gripped the ball like he never left, and uncorked a spiral so clean it should have come with its own copyright. The oblique injury? What injury? If you were watching closely, you saw the look on Kevin Stefanski's face. It was that half-smile, half-wince expression you make when someone proves you dead wrong, in front of everybody. Because the guy that's supposed to be easing back in after missing a week, he just ran the most precise 2-minute drill of the entire training camp.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And it wasn't just the accuracy, it was the control, the tempo, the swagger. Oh, Shedeur was back, and he made sure everyone knew it. Let's not pretend this didn't shake the entire quarterback room. Joe Flacco, the wise old vet. Kenny Pickett, still trying to find his rhythm. They both watched Sanders run with the twos like he was QB1. Suddenly, the whole dynamic shifted. Because Shedeur didn't just throw, he commanded. And look, Browns practice isn't exactly a red carpet event. Most days, it's vanilla reps, cautious playbooks, and coaches mumbling behind clipboards. But the second Sanders stepped onto the field, it felt like a premiere. Guys on the sideline stood up. Veterans who usually scroll through mental notes during drills were locked in. Receivers snapped into form. Even the defensive backs turned up their game. Why? Because Shedeur was cooking. He made throws that Flacco wouldn't even attempt in a regular season game. Tight window darts across the middle. Back shoulder fades that landed like poetry. One pass, a rolling right, 35-yard strike on the run to a backup tight end. Had reporters gasping. Literally gasping. Not metaphorically. And this wasn't just one flashy sequence. Sanders kept it up for the entire session. Read progressions? Check. Audible communication? Crisp. Pocket presence? Like a vet with 5 years in the league. You could almost feel the narrative shifting in real time. Let's talk about Stefanski for a second. The guy has made it very clear that he values experience. He wants stability in the huddle, consistency in execution. All the coach-speak buzzwords that buy time while you figure out what the fan base already knows. But after this practice, that leash on the Flacco experiment just got a lot shorter. Because you can't unsee what Shedeur just did. You can't go back to boring drives and safe decisions when you've seen a rookie hit 3 different receivers in stride across 4 reps, each with perfect anticipation and timing. You can't tell the fans to be patient when the future of the franchise is standing 20 yards away, already looking like the guy. And let's not ignore the locker room vibes. You want to know who buys into a quarterback? Watch the O-line. The same guys who usually treat rookie QBs like interns were dapping Shedeur up after every rep. One lineman, we won't name names, was overheard telling a teammate, "That's our guy." Not the rookie. Not Deion's son. Our guy. That's not normal. Receivers were grinning ear to ear during water breaks. A few defenders, even after getting diced up on back-to-back plays, just shook their heads in disbelief. No trash talk. No frustration. Just recognition. You know how rare that is in camp? Shedeur didn't just dominate. He converted people. And yet, no word from Stefanski on whether Sanders will move up the depth chart. Nothing but tight-lipped soundbites about evaluating all our options and making sure he's 100% healthy. Healthy? The guy just ran a simulated 2-minute drill against your first-team defense and scored. You're still questioning if he's healthy? Nah. This isn't about health. This is about control. Because once you name Shedeur the starter, you can't go back. You hand him the keys, and you're not just betting on a rookie. You're betting on a movement. You're betting on the Sanders effect, the media storm, the fan pressure, the cultural weight. And that terrifies the establishment. But here's the thing, it's already happening. Fans are rallying. Brown's Reddit threads are basically Sanders' appreciation pages at this point. Social media is flooded with clips from practice. Some fans are even starting campaigns called Start Shedeur Now, with t-shirts and merch. And let's talk about the numbers. In just 48 hours after his return clip hit Twitter, Brown's engagement spiked by 42%. Searches for Shedeur Sanders on Google doubled. Merch sales with his name? You already know the answer. This isn't a feel-good story. It's a warning shot. If Cleveland wants to hold onto their fan base, and maybe even their locker room, they're going to have to stop playing games. Because this isn't about letting the vet settle in. This is about whether you're willing to bet on the future before it leaves you behind. Shedeur Sanders isn't asking for permission anymore. He just showed you what's possible. The only question left is, will the Browns recognize it before someone else does? While fans were buzzing and players were whispering, the Browns front office was already holding emergency closed-door meetings. Not because they were surprised by Sanders' performance, they knew what he was capable of, but because they suddenly found themselves on the losing end of the PR battle. Again, see, this wasn't supposed to happen. The narrative they wanted? Joe Flacco as the reliable veteran stopgap, Kenny Pickett in the wings, and Sanders slowly marinating behind the scenes, taking the humble path. That's the plan. The safe one. The kind of plan that looks good on paper, until a generational talent walks back onto the field and makes everyone look like they've been squinting at greatness and calling it potential. Now they got a fan base out for blood, an online storm they can't control, and, worst of all, a locker room that's seen the truth with their own eyes. And that's the danger. Once you see the future, it's hard to unsee it. The Browns' internal metrics team, yes, they have won, apparently tracked a 73% spike in social engagement during the 45-minute window after Sanders' throw clip went viral. To normal fans, that's a cool stat. But to executives, that's panic fuel. Because every Start Shedeur tweet, every viral clip, every locker room leak that praises him over the vets, it chips away at the image of control. And if there's one thing NFL franchises hate more than losing, it's losing control. Behind the scenes, the whispers are louder than ever. There's talk of tensions between Stefanski and the player personnel team. Ownership starting to ask questions, not just about who's playing, but about why the most talented quarterback on the roster is still practicing with the second unit. Because what Shedeur did on that field wasn't just impressive, it was impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Sanders? He's not even campaigning. He doesn't need to. He just shows up, handles his reps, encourages teammates, and lets his spiral speak for itself. That quiet confidence? It's louder than any podium speech. You'd think Flacco might feel threatened. And maybe he does. But to his credit, the veteran hasn't made this a circus. He knows what Sanders is. He's been around long enough to recognize when the torch isn't just being passed, it's being snatched. But Flacco also knows the game. He's not going to hand it over. He'll make Shedeur earn every inch. And that's exactly what's happening. In the meantime, reporters are digging deeper. Remember that oblique injury that supposedly sidelined Sanders for a week? Yeah, about that, multiple sources have started to cast doubt. Some insiders now believe it was a smokescreen to justify keeping him off the field while the team figured things out. The word managed optics has come up more than once in private conversations. If true, that's explosive. Because if the Browns exaggerated or even invented an injury to slow-roll Sanders' rise, that's not just mismanagement. That's sabotage. And in this media era, you can't hide that kind of thing. Not when fans have time, access, and motive. It only takes one leak, one assistant coach, one teammate's offhand comment to blow it wide open. And the fans? Oh, they're watching everything. Speaking of fans, the Free Shedeur movement is gaining steam. It started as a few Reddit posts, then became TikToks, then full-blown merch lines. You've got fans wearing #ForTheFuture shirts to open practices. Some are even staging mock rallies outside the facility. And the chants? Oh, yeah, they've already made their way inside. Players are hearing them. Coaches, too. And you can bet Stefanski feels that heat. Let's talk about him for a second. Kevin Stefanski isn't a bad coach. In fact, when he arrived in Cleveland, many thought he'd finally bring stability to to a franchise that had become the NFL's favorite punchline. But here's the problem. Stability doesn't win championships. Boldness does. Vision does. And if Stefanski doesn't pivot soon, he might be remembered not for what he built, but for who he held back. Because here's the ugly truth. Coaches lose locker rooms not when they lose games, but when they lose credibility. And nothing costs credibility faster than keeping the most talented guy on the bench, because you're scared of what happens when the status quo gets shattered. Shedeur's not just pushing for QB1. He's pulling the whole structure into question. And the veterans see it. The younger players feel it. Even team officials, the ones usually loyal to the script, are quietly saying it. He's ready. But readiness isn't the issue anymore. It's timing. With the final preseason game coming up, Stefanski has a choice. Does he double down on Flacco and risk a full-blown mutiny if things go south? Or does he finally give Sanders the reins and let the kid run? Because if Shedeur plays and balls out, there's no going back. You can't bottle that lightning twice. The fans will demand more. The media will press harder. And most dangerously of all, the players will expect it. And what about the rest of the league? They're watching too. Other coaches are already studying the Browns' situation like a case study in how to not handle a rising star. Agents are texting their rookie clients, watch what Shedeur's doing. That's your template. And rivals? They're praying Cleveland fumbles this. Because if Sanders starts and clicks, that's a playoff-caliber offense overnight. In this era of quarterback-hungry teams, you don't get many shots to build around a true franchise player. Cleveland has one. And if they let politics, pride, or fear keep him on the sidelines, they're not just risking a season. They're risking the future. While the front office scrambles and the coaching staff walks on eggshells, Shedeur Sanders is already operating like a franchise quarterback, and not just on the field. Behind the scenes, his influence is rapidly expanding. He's got teammates staying late after practice, running extra drills with him. Not because they're told to, because they want to. Guys are seeing the writing on the wall. If this is the future, they want to be part of it. Receivers are lining up to run routes during his reps. Even the backup tight ends, usually overlooked during QB1 discussions, are making themselves available, knowing full well that a highlight from one of Sanders' throws could skyrocket their own stock. And here's where things get even more interesting. Shedeur isn't just impressing with talent. It's his poise, his understanding of the game, his awareness, not just of defensive reads, but of how the NFL machine works. He knows every move is being watched. Every soundbite, every sideline expression, every locker room interaction. It's all being logged and dissected. And yet, he keeps showing up. Calm, professional, unbothered. That kind of presence? You don't teach that. It's either in you or it isn't. And for Shedeur, it's clearly in him. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski is finding himself in a position no coach wants to be in, publicly defending a decision that everyone, fans, analysts, players, even some staff, sees as outdated. His press conferences have started to sound more like damage control than leadership. We're evaluating everything. It's a long season. We trust our quarterback room. Translations? We don't know how to walk this back without losing face. The fan base isn't buying it. And neither is the local media. Cleveland's beat writers have shifted tone. It's no longer, should Shedeur get a shot? It's, how much longer can they afford to wait? Talk radio is relentless. National shows are circling the controversy like sharks in the water. ESPN segments, FS1 debates, TikTok breakdowns with frame-by-frame analysis of Shedeur's footwork versus Flacco's. Everyone's got an opinion, and 90% of them agree on one thing. The Browns are playing with fire. And let's not ignore the money trail. Merchandise sales tied to Sanders are outpacing every other player on the roster, including established stars. Local stores are selling out of his number. Kids are showing up to training camp wearing Colorado gear with his name on it, just waiting for it to be official in Cleveland. He hasn't even been named the starter, and he's already the face of the franchise in the eyes of the people. That's the difference between hype and momentum. Hype fades. Momentum? It snowballs. Behind closed doors, there are whispers that ownership, yes, the Haslams, are getting more involved. They've seen the metrics. They've heard the noise. They understand the economics. And while they've mostly stayed out of quarterback decisions, this is different. This isn't just about football, it's about value, brand equity, fan retention, the future of the Browns in the post-Brady, post-Rodgers NFL era. You know what else they're watching? Ticket sales. Games that were expected to sell out aren't. Resale prices have dipped, unless there's a chance Shedeur might play. Then prices spike. It's not just fans being fickle. It's consumer behavior screaming what the organization refuses to say aloud. People want to see the kid. They believe in the kid. And now, inside the locker room, things are getting complicated. Some veterans are getting antsy. They signed with the Browns thinking they were walking into a win-now scenario. They're not here to babysit a rebuild. But watching Flacco limp through reps while Shedeur slings bullets in practice, it's testing their patience. On the other side, the younger players, they're already locked in with Sanders. He's their peer. He speaks their language. He is their era. There's a generational divide forming, one that Stefanski can't afford to let fester. Because once you lose the room, no playbook can fix it. And speaking of Stefanski, it's not just about whether he'll start Shedeur. It's about whether he survives this moment. Because if the Browns fall flat out of the gate, say a 1-3 or 0-4 start, and Sanders is still riding the bench, that seat's going to heat up fast. Coaches get fired for mismanaging talent. Just ask the dozen who passed on Mahomes. You only get so many windows in this league. And if Stefanski lets this one close without even opening it, he might not get another chance to learn from it. The irony? Shedeur isn't gunning for anyone's job. He's just doing what he's always done, showing up, playing clean, and letting his work do the talking. But the silence from leadership? That's starting to say more than it should. There's a quiet test coming. The final preseason game. One more dress rehearsal. And if Shedeur sees real snaps, not cleanup duty, but meaningful reps, and shines like he has every day in practice, it won't be a debate anymore. It'll be a revolution. So let's talk about the final preseason game, because that's where everything's about to boil over. You've got thousands of Browns fans watching not just for the football, but for confirmation. Will Shedeur Sanders finally get meaningful snaps? Or are they about to witness another round of conservative clock management, checkdowns, and coaching staff stonewalling? The stadium atmosphere feels different. There's a kind of anxious electricity in the air, not for the team, but for him. The crowd isn't here to see Flacco throw 5-yard outs. They're here to see a future rewrite itself in real time. And when Sanders finally jogs onto the field, it's like a switch flips. You can hear it. The crowd roars, cell phones rise, and suddenly, this preseason game, it doesn't feel so pre. It feels like a moment. And what does he do with it? Exactly what you expect. First drive, laser to the sideline. Second play, perfect read against zone, hits the slot receiver in stride. Third down, escapes pressure, rolls left, resets his feet mid-run, and fires a touchdown dart into the back of the end zone like he's been doing this in his sleep. Just like that, it's not just fans cheering, it's the sidelines. Even vets who've been cagey in interviews can't hide it. They're smiling. They're nodding. They're starting to believe. And belief? It spreads. The camera pans to Kevin Stefanski, and you can see the conflict etched on his face. Because this undeniable moment is everything he's been trying to contain. All the patience, all the planning, all the spin about development timelines. It's gone. Evaporated. The kid is ready now, and everyone knows it. But what Stefanski knows, and what makes this so dangerous, is that naming Shedeur the starter doesn't just shift the offense. It shifts everything. It changes the locker room dynamic. It alters the narrative arc of the season. It forces him to admit that the original plan, relying on veterans, easing Sanders in, might have been wrong. And coaches hate that. Hate being forced into a corner by public pressure, even when it's justified. But here's the thing. It's not just pressure from fans anymore. The internal analytics team, the offensive coordinator, and even members of the Player Leadership Council are starting to echo what everyone else sees. The offense moves with Sanders under center. It flows. It's creative. It's dangerous in a way it hasn't been in years. You think players don't notice that? They do. They notice when the ball's where it's supposed to be, when drives don't stall, when they're not gasping for life before halftime. They've played with inconsistency. They've lived with mediocrity. This feels different. But as the post-game press conference rolls around, Stefanski deflects again. We like what we saw. Still evaluating. All options are on the table. It's the same old line. And the room goes silent. Because even the reporters know now, that's not going to cut it anymore. Shedeur, for his part, plays it perfectly. He thanks his teammates, gives credit to the coaching staff, says all the right things. But make no mistake, the confidence is radiating off of him. Not arrogance, presence. He knows what just happened, and so does everyone else. And outside the stadium, it's chaos. Merchandise tents are overrun. Fans are chanting his name. Social media explodes. #StartShedeur trends within minutes. Every sports personality with a camera or a podcast is dissecting his performance frame by frame. Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharpe, Rich Eisen, Pat McAfee. It's all Shedeur all day. And in NFL offices across the country, GMs and coaches are wondering if Cleveland just accidentally activated a franchise QB, and how in the world they're going to contain the ripple effects. Because this isn't just a quarterback battle anymore. It's a brand battle. Shedeur's off-field influence is growing just as fast as his on-field dominance. He's becoming the blueprint for what a modern NFL star looks like. Not just talented, but marketable, media-savvy, and totally self-owned. No filters. No corporate handlers. Just Shedeur, his team, and a direct pipeline to millions of fans. That level of autonomy? It terrifies old-school NFL power structures. Because if Sanders succeeds, and it's looking like he will, other young players are going to follow the blueprint. They'll demand media rights, equity clauses, creative control, and suddenly, the NFL machine isn't running on its own terms anymore. It's running on theirs. Back in Cleveland, the Browns' ownership is now facing a very different kind of decision. Not just about who starts under center, but about what kind of franchise they want to be. Do they cling to tradition and lose the locker room? Or do they embrace the future and risk the growing pains of change? Because here's what's clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't going away. He's not fading into the background. He's not just potential anymore. He's the moment. And if the Browns don't see that, someone else will. Because in this league, talent doesn't wait forever. It moves. It finds the team that believes in it. And when that happens, the team that missed it, the one that benched it, doubted it, buried it, becomes a footnote. And Shedeur Sanders? He's writing chapters.